All right, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Glad to be back with a new episode. Again, new week. Happy Monday, October 6th, 2025. Can't believe it's already October. Fall weather is here in Philadelphia, so and fall all through the world and everything. But glad to get and be back. So before I bring my guest, hit my music. Let's get it. All right. Once again, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Happy Monday, October 6th. You can follow the show on all the podcast platforms, whether it is Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on BS3 Network, BS3TVLive.com, BS3 Network Roku channel. We're on Spreaker. If you download the podcast, you can find the Real Deal on mostly every podcast on iHeartRadio as well. You can follow me on all the social media platforms, Twitter, whatever it's called these days, Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, which I'm a little active on there, trying to get into that as well, and TikTok. All right, well, let me bring in my guest. I'm so glad to have her on, and we've been chatting for a little bit, trying to set this up, and we finally got the right time and a great time. And she's in the midst of moving too, so this is a really good time. And she talks about she's a broadcaster, podcaster, do a little bit of everything, teaching as well. So, but let me bring her in. Jamie Steyer Johnson, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Courtney. So glad to be here. Hey, you said moving, all that fun stuff. I can take like any break that I can get. Like something like this, absolutely. A lot more fun than packing boxes, and made me be really productive during the day because I knew I had this tonight. So I thank you for that.
All right. Well, I'm glad to be part of that, is to give you a little break. So it was just perfect timing and everything too. But I'm so glad to get you on. Like I said, you broadcast and podcasting, women's sports, not just basketball, but women's sports in general. And we're going to get into all your career and everything too. So I'm so glad to have you on. So again, I can't thank you enough for accepting the invite as well.
Oh yeah, it's always great to, get out there, get into some new spheres. I've loved the other interviews you've done. You've had so many tremendous guests. So it's a little confidence boost there to, get to join a group like that. So yeah, really excited.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and thank you for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I watch your content, and we were just talking before we started recording. Like, so much is happening in women's basketball, especially in the professional, the WNBA, and a lot of things. That's not even. And we do have the WNBA finals, and the sad thing is that's not even the most important thing, which is it's sad in a way too. But we have a great finals. We'll get into all the things that's happening in the W. But I want to talk about you and your career. So my first question I always ask my first time guest: who is Jamie Steyer Johnson, and how did you get into the broadcast and where you are today?
Yeah, so I think that like the number one thing to know about me and kind of the perspective that I bring, how I got to where I am, is that I am a coach's kid. So my mom has been a college basketball coach for, longer than I've been alive. It's the only job she's ever had professionally. So my mom has been a assistant coach, currently the associate head coach at Iowa State for women's basketball for, I have to do the math every single time. It's 23 years now. So it's been a long time there. She was hired by Coach Fenley back when he was at Toledo, straight out of college, and so that was well before I came along. But that's kind of the whole context in which I grew up, and so that's kind of how I look at things. I grew up very embedded in the Iowa State athletic department, following a lot of women's basketball, following a lot of college athletics specifically, and so when I came to college, as an undergraduate, went to Iowa State, did a lot of coverage there while I was a student, and just always wanted to work in sports, but I didn't necessarily know what I wanted that to mean, or what that would mean. And so when I went into school, I was doing I'm going to go work for ESPN. I'm going to do all that. And as soon as I got into college, it was like, oh, I mean, that's not off the table, but I know what that would take. And the moving around and the tough jobs, the dues you have to pay. And it really just got to the point where by the time I graduated, I said, I don't want to go through that. And I had too much of a life built in Iowa, and I just didn't want to have to climb the ladder. And so I'd kind of given up. I kind of thought, okay, that's that. It's been really fun to do the sports thing, but I'll just go do something in general communications or sales or whatever. And that's when a year after I graduated, they needed someone to do radio for Iowa State women's basketball. And so I had done radio all through college. I had experience there. And so I stepped in. I did a few games that first year, a few more the second year. By year 3, it was like, well, Jamie has really open availability. And so I had taken over by that point, and now I'm going into year 7 on the radio. So yeah, had the connection there. But beyond that, it's really been just trying to continue to network, and make those other connections. That's how I ended up doing a bunch of other sports, volleyball at Drake University in Des Moines. I literally just cold emailed them and said, hey, if you ever need anyone to fill in, please let me know. I'm in the area. I'd love to. They got back to me same day and said, yeah, so actually our season that starts next week, we don't have an analyst at all. So I just stumbled into a full season of volleyball for Drake in that way. And I'm in year 3 now. So it started from a very young age. I had a really great foundation. And then Iowa was such a great state for college sports, for women's athletics, especially. So I've been really fortunate to be able to stay close to home, where I've, decided is home, and actually still do the thing that I love to do, which I didn't think was going to be an option.
I love it. I love the trajectory that you have pursued. And like, I love hearing everyone's story, because it's always different how you got into, especially when it comes to broadcasting or media, because this has evolved so much too over the years. And like you said, you got to stay close to home, and you're thinking, hey, this is what I like to do. This is what I love to do. And it's been entrenched in you since the beginning, as you said, from the beginning. How would you say that those life experiences from the beginning has, like you said, have molded you to where you are today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that I have a fairly unique perspective as far as being a broadcaster, being an analyst. Like, there's a reason why I specifically call myself an analyst. My duty on the radio and on TV would generally be called either the color commentator or the analyst. And being the kid of a coach, I look at things through a coach's lens a lot of the time, because that's who I learned everything I know about the sport from. And so I look at it through a very truly analytical lens. I love my numbers. I love watching film. I love, having really in-depth notes. And so the fact that, I was raised very close to a team and by the experiences of my mom. My dad coached for a while before I was born as well. So, like, not to leave him out at all, but my mom's the one that's really been in the thick of it while I've been around. So it's really meant everything, where I have so much background specifically with Iowa State. So my work with them is very well informed without having to do a whole lot of research, which helps since we have such a tremendous fan base. If people are fans, they've usually been fans for quite a while. So when I'm bringing up people that played 15 years ago, everyone's like, oh, I remember them. And then, they love it. It's like, oh yeah, that was my idol growing up. But it's it's really cool just to understand things from the team side, the athlete side, the coach side, but also to have that bit of distance for it, where I didn't play in college, where I haven't been a coach, but I've been in the media for so long, where I understand both sides of it. And I feel like that allows me to communicate to a really wide audience effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I knew once, I reached out to you, and because I love the analytic side of it too. Like, just as you say, growing up, numbers and statistics and really studying them. And then now the things have changed over the years of how we consume that and how we, present with, because there's so many numbers. And I want to dive a little bit into that, the analytical side of that, of, any of the other sport, but we'll stick with basketball from college or the pro. Since there's so many now different numbers and things, how you can analyze a player or a team and everything too. How has that for you? How has that changed for the good and the bad? Is it too many numbers sometimes when it comes to evaluating, like you said, the players or scouting and things like that from an analytical side, or is it just for people like me and you that love the numbers and really but you still have to do the eyeball test when it comes to that too. Yeah. But that tug of war of analytics, I know some people that don't like the analytics or they think it's too much, or or the basic statistics too, but or the eyeball test. What's your perspective on that for someone that loves to dive into the analytics of sports?
Yeah, I think that it all is about balance. I don't think that you can rely solely on numbers. I don't think you can rely solely on film or the eye test. I think that you have to have a pretty good balance of those things, in the same way that in basketball, you can't rely solely on offense or defense. You can't rely solely on practicing your own stuff or solely on scouting opponents. Like, you need to be able to do a little bit of everything. And that's why it's so important to have a great staff as a whole. That's another thing that I feel like I've seen that a lot of people don't get to really understand or see up close, where the reason why head coaches so often talk about their assistants, or like they'll credit their assistants for specific aspects of game preparation, because the head coach is the manager. Like, they're at the top, they're delegating, but they don't have their hands in every individual thing. And so you have people who kind of specialize in different things, where you'll have someone who's really into the analytics, and you have people who are really into the film and cutting down the film and diagramming the plays, and there's player development. So to me, I think it's great to have so many resources, but you have to understand not even just how to use them, but what they mean. I think there's a lot of people that try to get into the numbers, and there's kind of a barrier for entry because there's so few resources that really explain it well. And that's why the resources that do explain it well are so valuable. Like, I recommend Dean Oliver's books to everyone. Literally everyone I talk to about basketball. One of my greatest successes of the past year is that I tweeted about one of the books and he followed me back. And so, like, I have that in my back pocket. And I just feel so like special for that. But he makes basketball analytics, first of all, interesting through really great anecdotes, but also understandable. Like, he'll go through the whole formula, which is nonsense to me, but he'll explain what each aspect is, so that when I'm looking at someone's offensive rating, I know exactly what that means now. And I just feel like a lot of people will look at, okay, high number good, or, high number bad, and anything in between is kind of lost. And so to be able to actually understand it is really important. I also have at this point like a very solid process. Like, it's not what I can really outline, because it's a lot of things going on, but I have 3 or 4 sites that I'll go through for any specific game prep. And I know, okay, I'm pulling these numbers for players, I'm highlighting these particular parts, I'm pulling this one chart. Like, I know exactly what I'm looking for, but it's because I've been doing it for 7 years. So if you're just starting to get it, it's so tough. There's just so much.
Yeah, it can be a lot. But like I said, I think when we're breaking it down, and because like I said, just like you, we do a lot of your that's how your prep. I was going to ask about your prep, but like I said, you're breaking it down. But you've done it for so long, you understand what those mean. And I think a great point you said about when it comes to analytics and things like that, people can look at, you say, player rating, and they're like, okay, yeah, you said, okay, it's a high rating for this individual player, but how did they get there? Like, what's their strengths and weaknesses? What, if we talk about, we'll go to basketball, what's their sweet spot on the court? How do they fare against this type of defense? How do they fare against this type of defense? Or and things like that. So yeah, we could see how, oh, this person's good. We could go in and you could go to a game and say and talk about who's the best player, but it's those nuances, those small intricate nuances that makes them good, and how to use those numbers and everything too, and their strengths and weaknesses too. So yeah, I love how you broke that down.
Thanks. Yeah, it's so like I love to think about it. I love to talk about it. Like I tell my students all the time, I have a handful of students that are in sports media, and I'm just like, hey, at any given point in time, like I could talk about analytics for hours. I just did that in class the other day. I'm like, let's talk about this later because otherwise we're gonna totally derail what we're going through. But it's so interesting, and it's like constantly changing. It's constantly updating, but it's so nice that finally there are significant resources for women's basketball, because for so long it was just every resource for men's, and there was Her Hoop Stats, and that was basically it for women's basketball. So I obviously love my Her Hoop Stats. I love working with them. I love having that as a resource, and have for several years. But more people entering the fray, it just helps everyone. It's it raises all ships. So it's very exciting.
It's very exciting. It's very exciting to see more and more for women's basketball podcasts and things like that, as you said, and resources that now, and it has evolved over the years. I want to go back to your prep. I mean, we could have a whole conversation about the analytics. Like I said, I dig that. I really dig that. But your prep and your day-to-day for broadcasting and covering multiple sports and multiple platforms. What is your day-to-day like? I'm sure it's different each week.
Yeah, it very much is. So last year was interesting because that was by far the busiest year I've ever had as a broadcaster, where I did not just the entire college basketball season for Iowa State on the radio, but I had picked up both Drake volleyball for the second year. And then they also needed someone to come in for men's and women's soccer at Drake. Yeah. And so that started in August, and I think the most consecutive days I had off was 5 or 6 until April. And that was a lot. But it was very exciting because that was where I finally felt like, oh, okay, like I've gained a significant amount of traction. And this year, I don't do soccer anymore. I did one soccer match for them, but as we said, everything changes really constantly. And one of those things is NIL and how athletic departments are spending their money. So they cut back. They went to a one-person broadcast for most of soccer this year, which I'm glad I'm not the one person having to do a whole soccer match by myself. Right. But I stepped back from that, and I am now doing volleyball once again. I do a couple of Iowa State volleyball matches, and then once we get into college basketball season, I do the whole thing through for ISU. So it's variable, but I generally will have some kind of note-taking process, whether that be for soccer, volleyball, basketball. I'll watch at least a recent game or match of both teams. It's when you're doing ESPN Plus for TV, which is what I do with Drake, it's kind of odd because you're hired through the school, but technically you're supposed to be fairly neutral. Whether that actually happens in practice in essence, as anyone who has watched an ESPN broadcast knows, is variable, but I try to take that pretty seriously, especially because I'm always open to more opportunities. So I figure if opposing teams see it and I'm fair to them, if they like what I'm doing, that only opens more doors. So I'll watch a recent match for especially whoever the opposing team is coming in, because I've generally called other games for the home team. So I'll make sure that I take a bunch of notes there. A lot depends on the sports information department of a school. Obviously, working within the Missouri Valley Conference and the Big 12 Conference is very different in a lot of ways as far as resources go. A lot of them do great game notes, though. I get a lot of information about individual players, about teams as a whole. So I'll go through all of those. I do kind of my analytics thing. I don't do that for soccer because I did not know a lick about soccer. It was literally just understanding like what offsides was kind of, and like how many people are supposed to be on the field. Like at this point, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I sort of do, but I still don't get into the numbers. for volleyball, not a ton of resources, kind of like women's basketball a few years back, but her hoop stats, a bunch of the people have gotten together and put together a site called Evolve with 2 L's, like volley. And so they have a bunch of the same sort of analytics that they have available for basketball, for volleyball. So I go through all those now. And it's just kind of all over the place because during basketball season, I watch every single game I possibly can. So at that point, it's not so much a streamlined process. It's just going through everything I have up here. But it's very different depending on the day.
Yes, I'm sure. And like you said, it's just you said different sports, volleyball and basketball for sure. What you said, it's just I love hearing the prep of how broadcasters and analysts what the process is. And you said watching film, watching games, getting the information, having access to the information. You said that sometimes I'm sure it's hard getting that access from schools and things like that. But now you said we have social media, you have different sites and things like that you can trust, that you can go right to that. So I love that. I know it's probably a tough one, but what's one of the most memorable games or interviews that was special to you over the years that you've done?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be brief on it, I promise, but it's a twofer here. So my very first year calling women's basketball for Iowa State, I was on the schedule for the senior night game. And so this was the 2019-2020 season. The team was solid, not, best of the best, not near the bottom. They had put together a resume that would pretty well get them into the NCAA tournament, but they were still probably a bubble team. So coming into senior night, it was number 4 ranked Baylor coming into Ames. I figured, okay, at the very least, I can try to send these seniors out on a high note. I can kind of, pay my respects to them, this group that I know really well, because I was in school at the same time as pretty much all of them. And also it was my first, and to this day, only time calling a game with John Walters, who in Iowa State sports media is often referred to as the Godfather. He's been around forever. He is a legend. He's unbelievable. I worked with him a ton when I was in college, but not on broadcast. I was like behind the scenes and he was doing the broadcasting. So I figured, man, what a cool opportunity to get to call a game with John, and it's senior night, and whatever happens in the game is what it is, but we'll just have a good call. Well, we go out. Coach Fenley is not unique in that he starts his seniors, but fairly unique in that he also tries to keep them in until the first media timeout. And that year, we had a very interesting group of seniors, had 2 of like the smallest players we've probably ever had in the program who don't shoot the 3, which is like un-Iowa State as could possibly be. And the starting center was also out due to injury. You're going up again. This was in the Kalani Brown and Lauren Cox years at Baylor. So you're kind of in a tough spot there. Long story short, they win the game. It's back and forth the whole time. There's a player that made her, I believe, only career 3 as a Cyclone as part of like a last second push to seal it. And it was unbelievable. And that ended up being the last game of the season, because when we got to Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament, it was canceled due to COVID. So it was really hard, obviously, to have the season end suddenly like that. But if you're going to end on any note, that's a heck of a high note to end on. And that was, I think, the first instance of me bawling on air. I was sobbing. I just couldn't believe it. And I loved the group that was there. And so that was really special. And then a few years ago, Iowa State won the final Big 12 tournament that occurred simultaneously with the women's and men's side. And so in 2023, it was the last time that the women's tournament was held at Municipal Auditorium, which Iowa State, there's so many great memories there. The Cyclone fans travel amazingly. And so that was the first time that they had won the tournament for over 20 years. And it was surreal. And so I got to call that one, and it was really, really special.
That those seem like very special moments of your career. You said senior night, and not even just that. They said they won. They beat ranked Baylor, fourth ranked Baylor at that time too. And then they said the Big 12 it starts, and it's like, oh, COVID here ends everything. I mean, this
Mhm.
ends all, just in general, global pandemic, not just sports, but just everything just ended. That's wow. Yeah, that had to have been like a high, and then but you said to end it on that type of note, to win, like they said on senior night, had to have been very special for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the fact that like the also underlying thread of all of these is that I've done all of
Yeah.
this alongside my mom, who's like my best friend,
Yes.
is
Yes.
crazy. It's so cool. Like
That is cool.
we're roommates when we travel on the road. So it's
See,
I never could have anticipated it working out like this, but it's been unbelievable.
Emily, yes, and they said with your mother, and then doing that, and sure with family, somebody said someone special in your life. That's I'm sure is tremendous as well. All right, let's get into the podcast. As you said, you contribute to the 1012 podcast
Mhm.
for in the network as well, and everything too. So talk about that. We'll start from there. Talk about how that all came about.
Yeah, so actually, right along with that, the 10-12 kind of came
Yeah.
about as a result of that senior night game. It was
Okay.
everything shut down. And so the 10-12, it was at that time just the podcast, not the network.
I never.
They
Yeah.
were trying to just get episodes on anything that had happened kind of at the end of the sports season before everything shut down. And they were like, well, we could all kind of reminisce. We could all kind of talk about some of this stuff that happened in the Big 12. And so Philip Slavin over at the 10-12 invited me to come on and just talk about that senior night game. And it was super fun. We had a great time. And a couple months later, he was shifting the format of the show, where previously it had just been him interviewing people, talking Big 12 sports. And he decided, all right, I need something a little bit more consistent. I can't be trying to find people every single week. So he decided to bring on a pair of co-hosts, and he had a bunch of people that he kind of had on as contributors before that he had interviewed, and had a short list of people to bring on. And he had myself and Andy Mitz, who is a Kansas Jayhawk, reporter as well as fan. And so we both had come on and just had a great time, had a great trial episode. And from there, that was just kind of what we did. The three of us would jump on every week and talk all things Big 12 sports. I definitely got the opportunity to really emphasize the women's sports side of things, talk volleyball, talk basketball. Now, since with all my other commitments going on, and the fact that I don't really follow football much, I am not on during the fall season. But as soon as basketball season comes around, which is like imminent, I'll be
Eminem,
back
right?
in the regular rotation
Yeah,
there.
almost immediate now, right?
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then also you're on the Her Hoop Stats
Mhm.
podcast as well, which I love. I've always enjoyed Her Hoop Stats podcast. So talk a little bit about what that is for those that don't know, who should be
Mhm.
listening and following. When it comes to women hoops, this is one of the, if not the podcast to definitely, like you said, has everything when it comes to
Yeah.
talk about the Her Hoop Stats podcast.
Yeah, that's kind of our goal.
Yeah.
So I was brought on to Her Hoop Stats a little over a year ago now. So we
Yeah.
first started recording last year during the WNBA finals, but I had been in discussion with Her Hoops since the Final Four of that year. So I have used Her Hoop Stats for ages just in my general coverage. And so
Yes.
I have a number of friends that are contributors there that are on staff. And so when I was at the Final Four, one of them reached out, was like, hey, our founder would love to meet you. And so I figured, oh yeah, we're just chatting. We're just like networking, whatever. And at the end of this long conversation, very similar to this one, just talking about, my background and, the way that I use numbers and things like that, he was like, yeah, so we want to expand some of our media offerings, and we would love to have you on to do a podcast. And so from there, we sort of developed what that was going to look like. They brought on two co-hosts that I hosted with for several months. And then more recently, we've decided to expand more. And so brought on even more people and have sort of a rotating cast so that there's an episode coming out every single weekday. So it's there's a lot that we can cover. You still can't cover everything in the women's basketball space,
Right.
but with 5 episodes per week, we're able to get a lot more than we did when we were just once weekly. And we get a lot of different voices on. We have within our rotation, there's like, Christy Winters Scott, who does a little bit of everything in the broadcasting world, but works really closely with the Washington Mystics. We have Sydney Brunson, who lives over in Arizona, has done work with the Phoenix Mercury in the past. She went on like a tour of a bunch of the WNBA arenas this summer. And so we got all of her input. And then, so there's so many more that I'm not going to go through all, dozen of us, but it's a great group. A lot of varied experiences. So you have people that are very solidly media, people that have played professionally, people that have coached. It's a little bit of everything. And so continuing to work on expanding that, and just really, really thrilled to be a part of it.
Like I said, that's one of not my go-to when it comes to women hoops, and herhoopstats.com. He said been listening and everything, and they said it unlocks better insight about the women's game, and it really does. And he said, I love the expansion with he said analysts and podcasters, and yes, it's like I said, it's a rotating group, and a great group and a great podcast as well. You guys have, like I said, I love it because it's daily too, and I can just listen to, if I say, if I missed something, you guys covered it. You guys have covered it, or at least talked about it, and it really break it down and everything too. So I need
it these days, honestly. With the fact that I'm in classes all day, then I'll come back and we'll be like, okay, this is what I'm listening to after school, so that I don't miss anything.
Yes, and it's like, her hoop stats. Let me get into it. Even if I got to listen to the next day, I'm listening to it when I'm at work. I work from home, so I listen to podcasts throughout the day while I'm working. So it's it's a tremendous platform as well. So, but let's get into some of this before I let you go. Let's get it. We got to talk some WNBA, and like we said at the top, so much is going on top of the WNBA finals, which is going on between the Aces and Mercury, who are the Aces are up 2-0 as well. So let's start there. We'll start there, then we'll get into everything else. What do you think of the overall season? If you could put it in a few words, which is the injuries, you had the referee issues that's been going on, but if you could put it in a nutshell, the whole season, what's your couple takes on how the season has been and to where it is right now with the WNBA finals?
I think the headline is the parity. Coming into the season, there was so much made of the returners for New York, for Minnesota, for Las Vegas. And then there was a lot less noise made about some of the moves that Phoenix made, that Atlanta made.
Yes.
And ultimately, I think that there was this kind of expectation of some teams being fairly dominant and then just a mess after that. And the reality was that in the regular season, as far as standings go, Minnesota pulled away pretty significantly. But beyond that, it was one of, if not the most competitive seasons we've seen in the history of the WNBA. And so it was really exciting just to see a lot of those perceptions go out the window, to see in a year where over half of the head coaches were replaced, so many people kind of found their footing and were able to put together immediately cohesive, impactful squads. And it was very relieving also to see a lot of programs, not all of them, but a lot of them find some of that surety in their leadership and their vision, knowing that with the CBA negotiations coming up, basically the entire league's about to be free agents. And so you needed to have a lot more consistency within leadership and within teams in order to have things be sustainable, really, and to still be putting a good product out there on the floor. So that was a relief. After that, I would say it was just jam-packed. I expressed a lot of concerns leading into the season about adding additional games into the same time span. And then also expanding the postseason series. And frankly, I think that all of that culminated and was encapsulated really well by Kelsey Mitchell's rhabdomyolysis. I think it's absolutely absurd that a professional athlete should be in any situation to be pushed to that point, regardless of anything else going on outside of it. As a professional athlete, to suffer from rhabdomyolysis says that there's something wrong with the situation you're being put in. And so I think that has to be a massive emphasis in negotiations. I'm sure it will be, but I do think that it's disappointing to have something like that happen in a time where everything's just so exciting and fun in the league.
Yeah, it's very exciting and fun. And that leads to, and I agree 100% everything you said about the parity and how competitive it was. And even with all the significant injuries that we've seen throughout the year, throughout the season, to a lot of different, from the all-star caliber players to all the other players, there was just so much. And you're right, we'll get into the referee thing in a minute, but it was just, the way it was, how competitive it was until now. It said we weren't even talking about, you said the moves that Phoenix made, the moves that Atlanta made. And these were perennial teams, top tier teams that, made noise in the playoffs. I mean, you got Phoenix who are in the finals right now. It was tremendous. But again, the injuries too, that could be contributed to the long season. Mm-hmm. There was back-to-backs that, they weren't, the league wasn't used to that yet. And they have to, if they're going to continue down this path, they got to get more games. If there's going to be more games, you got to have, not so many back-to-backs either. So yeah, they got to get used to that as well. But it's been a tremendous year. And I mean, look at the Indiana Fever, how many injuries they had. I mean, they had a whole team. Half their team was on injured reserve. So, and they still were overtime away from making it to the finals. So, so that there's so much resilience with a lot of different teams as well. But I want to get into a little bit of, let's talk about the finals. What's your take so far of the Aces? They're back in the finals, and A'ja Wilson's just still showing she's the best player in the league, I think, by far. She's the number one, the number one player. But what do you think of what the Aces have done, starting slow, and where they are, what they're doing right now, up 2-0 against Phoenix?
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the way that they started out the finals, for sure. The way that they came back in game one and then just completely dominated game two. Frankly, I said on the Hurry Hoop Stats podcast last week that I thought that there was a significant chance that Vegas having to go from game 5 to the finals and Phoenix having that little bit of an extended break could be the difference maker in this final series. Yeah. And that has not been the case thus far. Certainly over the course of a potentially 7-game series, that could change. Yeah. But the fact that Vegas came out, took care of business at home, got those 2 games, and were not in a potential, it wouldn't be an elimination game unless you go 0 for 2 at home on the road, but you just give yourself that huge boost. And now you both are on fairly even footing where, okay, now you're 2 games into it. At any given point in time, you're going to have about the same amount of rest. Like, obviously things compound from the previous series, but not nearly as much. So I'm blown away. The fact that A'ja does what A'ja does. That's obviously completely oversimplifying it. But at this point, if you don't know what she's capable of, you just haven't been watching. The big separator has been Jackie Young's consistency and then getting that bench production. Dana Evans, unbelievable. And just playing out of her mind. I said it on Twitter yesterday. It's the postseason run I envisioned for Natisha Heidemann, but I wish they could have done it against each other in the finals. However, I love the vibes. Dana Evans just works so hard, keeps her head down. That's kind of the way that Vegas is on the whole. So they've been incredible. I'd be shocked if Phoenix doesn't have another huge push in them here while they're at home.
Yeah.
Maybe over-adjusted a little bit in game 2. That's something that Nikias Duncan got into a lot over on Twitter. Some of the post-game stuff, some of the questions he asked Nate Tibbetts. It just was very like up and down from one to the other. I think they can equalize a little bit at home, but at this point, when you go up 2-1 or 2-0, definitely Vegas has the upper hand.
Yeah, Vegas definitely has the upper hand, and I love the point where you said Jackie Young, just the consistency of seeing her hitting those big shots, and just going out there because she's such a good player. And he said Asia do Asia things. There was no question that she was gonna do her thing. But it also shows too, for me, the experience that the Aces have too in this series. And I was talking about this with someone, and I think we were just going over it, the matchup, and I said, experience does help, and they've been there, they've won, and with Becky Hammond at the helm, she just knows how to do in-game adjustments and things like that. And they didn't panic in game 1. They figured it out, and they're like, hey, we're in this for the long haul, so we're gonna we've been there before. So I think that plays a big, huge role of why they're up 2-0, and they said now they have that cushion, a little bit of cushion heading into Phoenix. And I'm with you too about Phoenix adjusting, and I would be shocked if they don't get at least one of these next couple. But as of right now, Vegas has the upper hand, as you said, and that's why they're up 2-0.
Yeah. It's really interesting too, because Vegas has solidified so many of the things they've struggled with, especially in the postseason.
Yes.
They really struggled on rebounding on both ends of the floor. That's something that they locked down, especially in game 2. Jewel Lloyd herself, I think, has taken it upon herself to make every rebound hers. The way she's been defending has been absurd. Chelsea Gray, I said she lives for the bright lights. Like, she is one of my favorite players of all time. I love watching her play, and she is thriving. So top to bottom, Vegas is getting the best version of really all their players. And I think that puts the regular season into a different light, where you realize, you have to go through some of the adversity. You have to have those opportunities to develop, and this is how it pays off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they went through that adversity from the beginning of the season, and then they peaked and won. What was it, 20? I forgot what it was. It was 20.
Like 17 straight going into the postseason.
Yeah, going into the postseason. Yeah, it was 17 straight going into the postseason. Absurd run, and I knew, like, once they got into that run, like, okay, they're probably the most dangerous team heading into the playoffs, and then they were. And then they did face some adversity in the playoffs, but they overcame it, and again, the experience really kicked in. So they definitely are showing why they're champions for sure. All right, last one. We got to get into this. The Fisa Collier, Kathy Engelbert, and everything too, because that's been the talk. Just not even just this past week, but just in general. I did hear you guys on her hoop stats. You guys talked about that, broke it down and everything. Tremendous analysis on that. But what's your overall take on this? The FISA went in, and someone, I forgot who said it. Someone said when she had her papers, she started put her papers down, like, okay, she's about to do something and really lay in, and she did lay into the leadership of the W. And then Kathy Engelbert had her, and it's interesting. Like, we're talking about this, and then the meeting got canceled and all this. So, but what's your overall take on this whole thing?
I mean, I think it's kind of like I said, that Kelsey Mitchell's rhabdomyolysis was like a culmination of a lot of the issues we saw during the regular season. This feels like the culmination of a lot of the issues we've seen for several years in the WNBA, where everything was kind of set up to boil over, to come to a head at some point. And when you're leading into CBA negotiations, that's the timing that would make sense for things to really either come together or break apart. And I think that a lot of it has to do, I mean, there's just so many aspects that feed into it, whether that be the ownership structure of the WNBA, the partnership with the NBA, the various stakeholders that are involved there, the historic undervalue of the media rights deals, where you have the WNBA operating at a deficit for so long, which probably wasn't necessary if proper rights deals had been negotiated. It's the same as a lot of the issues that the NCAA has faced in many sports across the board, primarily women's sports, just kind of accepting these low media rights deals because that's what was on the table, and no one really thought to put in the work to properly value these opportunities and these platforms. So it's all just kind of been messed up for a long time. And yeah, Kathy Engelbert is bearing the brunt of it now, but a lot of that is because of the fact that she hasn't really fostered those relationships where players are not feeling heard, they are not feeling valued, they are not feeling respected. I think that when you have someone like Elena Delle Donne who doesn't say anything, like she just kind of sits there, minds her business, like, and she's coming out and saying, yeah, I don't know if Kathy even knows I retired because I never heard a thing from her. Like, that's absurd. Yeah. When you have that kind of player, that kind of legend, when she, it took a while for her to officially announce that she was retiring. When she did, like, that needs to be, that shouldn't even be on the commissioner. Like, you should have a person who says, hey, these are the people you need to reach out to today, or even type up the letter, sign it, send it on for her. Like, that
do a tweet, something.
It's egregious to neglect that aspect of your role as commissioner to that degree. And that's without even getting into all of the other alleged statements, where I say alleged, but I think that if anything that Nafisa said was inaccurate, it probably would have been specifically called out, as opposed to talking about some vague inaccuracies. If something she said was inaccurate, by all means, please tell us what's inaccurate. And part of that was Kathy was trying not to go directly at Fee. You notice that she specifically said there's a lot of inaccuracies in the reporting. Well, people are reporting exactly what Fee said. Fee is reporting exactly what you said. So what you're saying is Fee said something that's not true. And based on some of the other information coming out of other people who Fee had talked to directly after these meetings, the indications are that Fee was accurate and that she has stayed true to these words dating back to February. So I think that obviously, as you know, reports have said, poisoned the relationship. And I think that it was Kathy was kind of trying to dance around calling Fee a liar, but ultimately, when someone's quoting you and you say it's inaccurate, that's what you're saying. So I don't see a scenario in which the WNBA season starts in 2026 and Kathy Engelbert is the commissioner, just to be really blunt. I think it's too far past that. I don't think the players are on board with what she has to say. I think she also is kind of being scapegoated for a lot of the historical issues that the WNBA has had. Those things can go hand in hand, but I don't know that you can really have a change in leadership at this point in the negotiations, and knowing that the CBA expires at the end of the month. But at the same time, it's almost like, how do you not? It's a disaster, frankly. Like, I can't think of anything worse.
And I loved your breakdown. And I agree everything you said. And me and my wife was talking about this because being just fans of the league, we were just saying about how when Nafisa Collier she don't say much either. She usually is another one that just handles her business on the court, businesswoman, mother, all those things. And she, and again, one of the top players in the league. And when she has a press conference saying, you know, I need to address this. And she even said it herself in her statement, like, I've been quiet for too long. Now I need to say the statement and everything too. And I believe that a lot of the things she said, most of the things she said, has to be true. I don't see anything. I know some people are saying she's using names like she's using Caitlin Clark and weaponizing it, and her name and Angel Reese weaponizing it. But I really don't think so either. I think if Kathy Engelbert said what she said, that it's probably accurate. Is what Fee talked about and everything too. So yeah, Kathy Engelbert did, as you said in her press conference, she said didn't call her a liar, didn't call Fee a liar, but kind of danced around it. You're saying if it's inaccurate, that means you're calling her a liar. So, and I think Nafisa is fed up. That's why the meeting did get canceled, because it doesn't seem like nothing's going to get changed unless, like I said, leadership gets changed. And I think that's where I think Kathy Engelberg, the commissioner, sees the writing on the wall. I think she does see that. And to be dismissive all season on, oh, we don't have an officiating problem. We don't.
Only losers complain about officiating.
Yes, exactly. When you say something like that,
spare me.
Yeah, it is not just there was players, there was coaches. It's one thing when players are complaining about the refs, and we've seen it throughout the sports when we watch, but you have a referee problem. There's an issue. Coaches are saying it from the winning side and the losing side. Everybody's saying there's a referee problem, and you don't want to address it. There's an issue. When you're being that dismissive, and you're being dismissive about the CBA, the negotiate. Oh, we met at All-Star, and I thought it was a productive meeting. Not when the players are saying no, it wasn't. It wasn't productive at all. So yeah, there's a lot of things that is against Kathy Engelberg, and I think she does see that, and now she's trying to kind of like backtrack a little bit and trying to get in the good graces of the players. Should have been probably doing this throughout the year or the last couple of years. So yeah, for sure. Oh man, we could unpack this for a long. I mean, there's so much going on. I know you guys are gonna have a lot of coverage with this too. So all right, last question. I'm glad we got a chance to really break this down. I could have talked to you for a couple hours on this. Just on this alone. We got to definitely. I hope we could do another podcast again at another time when, with CBA and all those things and everything too. But the last question is, if someone wanted to come to you and ask for advice or want to get into broadcasting or want to get into to how to cover women's college basketball or high school, whatever it is, what would you say to them? A young person, it could be a young girl or boy that wants to get into broadcasting. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this a lot because I teach it, right? And so
right.
It's really about finding opportunities or making opportunities. The thing that is present now that was really just kind of starting to gain traction when I graduated in 2018. So not all that long ago, but as far as like the media landscape, it might as well have been a lifetime ago. You can make your own opportunities. You can really do something with it. So as great as it is to be able to, intern with a radio station or TV or a team, like if you can do that, absolutely do that. Get the professional experience. But at the end of the day, those are extremely competitive. And so if you can't find those professional opportunities, then you have to be putting content together. You have to be making something. And so whether that be writing a blog or putting out a podcast or, whatever that might be, figure out what it is you want to pursue and hone your skills, put stuff out there. You'll get feedback from people who pay attention. If you do well, you will gain traction. It at least gives evidence that you have the skills that you're trying to get employed for. And so there's this tremendous opportunity to build things up for yourself or join in with some of these independent media outlets. And there's really just no excuse to not be producing something, to be putting together a portfolio and to do so with ethics and as an actual journalist, as opposed to just like, the fans or the people on social media that just say things to get attention. If you actually approach it seriously, that will show.
Yeah, for sure. And great advice. And yes, so thank you, Jamie. This has been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this conversation and this episode. I really, really did. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule, because I know that what you said, college basketball starts right around the corner. And you'll be hitting the ground running. So I'm glad we got a chance to do this. But I really hope we can do this again at some point as well, because I really enjoyed your analysis and everything you do. So, but let everyone know where they can follow you on social media, want to reach out to you, they say want more advice or anything like that. Let them know what you got coming up within this next season, which you kind of talked about already. Yep.
Absolutely. You can find me on pretty much any social media platform at JSteyz, JSTEYZ. I spend the most time on Twitter, X, whatever. But I can be found other places as well. Instagram a little bit, but as far as sports goes, probably Twitter. I have a little bit more volleyball coverage coming up for Drake University. I'll have a weekly stint on the Her Hoop Stats podcast as usual, going through all of basketball season. And then during college basketball season, I'll be calling all of Iowa State women's basketball games on the radio, which can also be found on streaming. So that's always kind of fun if you want to tune in from a distance.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I can't thank you enough, Jamie. I really, like I said, I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you again. Best of luck at this upcoming season and the rest of the W season. And so much is happening in women's sports in general, and it continues just keeps rising and elevating as well. And you're a big voice of that. Be a big part of it as well. So I really appreciate the time, and thanks again. And I hope we can do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. When I'm not like in the middle of moving.
Yeah, right, yes.
And when I actually have like my backdrop and everything up in my
yes,
office.
yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, look forward to it. Best of luck with the move too as well. And again, I can't thank you enough. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the week and the basketball upcoming as well. So really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.